Do you should all over yourself? Well, today we're going to talk about what you might want to stop and what you might want to do instead. Hey guys, it's Vanessa V. Welcome to my channel where we discuss reigning over your life, conquering what's holding you back, and living life in victory each day using simplified strategies that work for you. In case you don't know me, I'm an actress and speaker, and I'm also living with post-traumatic stress disorder. A few things I'm not is a mental health care professional or a healthcare professional. I'm an expert in my own situation and what works for me, and my hope is by sharing these strategies that I've mastered over the years, they'll be able to help you just like they've helped me and so many others. Okay, so today's topic is why we should all over ourselves. Shoulding is something that I used to do all the time to myself. I should do the laundry. I should eat my vegetables. But it literally never felt good, and I would either still do it and hate it or not do it and still hate it. I'm sure that that's something we can all kind of empathize with. And at the time when I used to do this a lot, I didn't realize just how much it was affecting me and holding me back. And really looking back, I can definitely see how it made me feel even worse about myself and about life in general. The stuff we're going to touch on today really made a drastic difference for me. And so that's one reason that I wanted to make this video, was so that I could share it with all of you, because I'm assuming that a lot of you guys out there are also shoulding all over yourselves and experiencing similar experiences like I was. So there are actually multiple kinds of shoulds. But today we're going to focus mainly on two. Should, like I should do something, or shouldn't, I shouldn't do something. If you're like how I used to be, using these words or not using them was not really on my radar at all. I would just use them. And the funny thing is that despite how powerful these words tend to be, we definitely use them a lot. If we think about it, why do we use shoulds and shouldn'ts so much? And I found in my own personal reflection, and you know I kind of go deep on that if you haven't noticed, some of the things that I've kind of found is that they really do serve quite a powerful purpose for us. They help us to feel motivated to take action of some kind, and they can also seem as sort of a point of guidance or keep us on the straight and narrow path. And so because of that, it's almost like, well, of course we use them a lot. Why wouldn't we? They're positive, right? Meh. For more info, let's turn to the dictionary. Even the good old Oxford Dictionary defines the word should as being used to show what is right, appropriate, etc., especially when criticizing someone's actions. Did you catch that key word? Criticizing. And that's actually where a lot of the core issues lie in using shoulds and shouldn'ts. In general, criticism just doesn't necessarily feel very good, right? Especially negative criticism. A lot of times, even subconsciously, it can kind of make us feel like we're being attacked. But if you find that when you use them, you are filled with positive feelings of freedom and good vibes and self-esteem, you are not of this earth. JK. But that's because using these words actually tends to trigger the opposite reaction of what we're intending to use them for in the first place. Tension, anger, worry, lowered self-esteem, worsened self-image, feeling frozen. It sort of triggers this spinny cycle of negativity, right? It drudges up all of these negative feelings and perspectives that talk to us and tend to reinforce themselves, especially the more that we experience this. And it can definitely give us also a sense of chronic failure. If we felt good about the thing that we were going to do or not do in the beginning, maybe it's now starting to feel terrible and it was a bad idea. We should never have done it in the first place. And what that can actually do is train ourselves, therefore our brain, that situation all in all is just bad. So we should just avoid it now and in the future. And that can also feed into this negative cycle. So why is this happening in the first place? Ding, 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 the brain. And if you guessed it, you get candy. That was loud. basically speaking, in a nutshell, and you know how much I love metaphorical nutshells, shoulds and shouldn'ts are basically a form of negative pressure. And if you haven't seen my previous videos on the brain under stress or on being under pressure, I invite you to click those below because the information in those videos can really help you understand even more today how and why we shouldn't be shoulding on ourselves. And all the other stuff that we covered a few seconds ago can trigger that stress, worry, and anxiety that we covered in last week's video, which I, again, will link that also below. That negative pressure and therefore that stress, worry, and anxiety reaction that we have can very much make us feel as though we're trapped. It's a trap, which is then going to trigger our brain into a protective mode because usually when we feel trapped, we don't feel safe and therefore it feels dangerous. And that's gonna do a few things, but really if we go back to when we were sort of talking about perhaps when it feels like it's a positive reaction when we use shoulds and shouldn'ts because it gets us motivated, if we think about that, knowing what we know about stress, that can actually give us that energy to get motivated, not necessarily because our brain's like, oh yeah, let's go do that thing. That sounds like a good idea. Instead, our brain is like, oh my gosh, this is dangerous. We need to go. We need to do to make this situation end. So really, it's more of a stress response than anything else. And that tends to be negative because that's reassuring and reinforcing to our brain that we are in dangerous situations when there's things that we don't want to do presented to us. Does that make sense? I hope so. What that dangerous feeling can also trigger in us is that rebelling feeling or that avoiding feeling. So rebelling is sort of our brain's way of getting back control. So it's saying, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to do that because I have to do that. So again, it's a way of gaining a sense of power, even if it's not actually real. And then the avoiding side of the reaction that we may, face or experience is when those emotions, once again, like we talked about, feel so overwhelming that all our brain knows to do is just to shut down, to freeze, to not do anything, and to avoid the situation because if nothing else, at least that feels protective against danger. So really, in a nutshell, what it's doing is triggering that fight, flight, or freeze response that we talk about in that Brain Explained video. So really either way, no matter what's happening when we're experiencing this kind of situation, it tends to feel very negative. The situation tends to not be what we really want it to be, which is positive. But what it's also doing is reinforcing to that brain that we are unsafe when we are presented with things that we may not want to do or things that we feel pressured to do. So it's best to learn tools that are going to help us get out of that and function in a way that's closer to who we are, closer to the life that we want to live that feels positive and good. So that's what we're going to talk about next. These next steps are things that I personally found truly helped in those times of deep thought and thinking about what the heck is going on and how do I fix this so that I can actually do what I want to do and have it feel good. These are the things that I discovered that work for me and things that I still lean on today. One thing that I found was really crucial was sort of questioning the source of the should or shouldn't. Where was it coming from? Was it coming from the world's expectations, my own expectations, a drive to be perfect, which, I'm a recovering perfectionist. So really getting to the source of the pressure, the should or the shouldn't, because that to me sort of identified for myself the validity of it. And that's also something to consider is this valid and pertaining to me right now? So for example, the source of eating vegetables. Now I don't like eating vegetables. I do eat them every day, but I don't like them. So for me, if it's, I should eat vegetables, the source of why I should eat vegetables, well, I've heard from the world that eating them is good. I know for myself that I tend to feel better. I'll probably live longer the more vegetables that I eat. So I would have to say, yeah, it's a valid pressure or a valid should. Okay? Is it something that I might want to consider doing right now? Is it valid for me right now? Well, it's dinner time, so yeah, sure, probably. And so in sort of keeping with that thought process, turning my focus towards the benefits. What am I going to get out of that pressure? So if I do, for example, eat vegetables, what am I going to gain from that? Like I said, I'm going to feel better, probably about myself. I'm going to feel good physically, and I'm going to live longer. So those things are awesome. I'm going to benefit from those. So I'm creating a sentence about it that involves positive things. So I might consider shifting how I think about it from I should eat vegetables to vegetables make me feel good. Vegetables will help me live longer. I'll feel better about myself. Therefore, it might be a good idea to eat vegetables for dinner today. And that sort of leads me into the third thing. Did you notice that at no point in what I said was there the word should or shouldn't? And that was on purpose. And this one was for me the big kahuna. For me, even if I don't go through the source and is it, does it pertain to me and all that stuff? If I literally, in a quick snap, just go, okay, I just noticed I said I should eat vegetables. I just realized I said should. That's not a vocab word that I would like to use from now on. So instead, how can I replace that? And there's two phrases that I tend to go with. Either it might be best to do X, or I'd like to do X. It might be a good idea to do X. I guess that's 3. But those are the ones that I tend to go back to. So even though it's still leading me to the same possible conclusion, especially if it's, like eating vegetables, obviously that's probably a good idea. Changing how I phrase the phrase in my mind can help lift that pressure off, take the power and the control away from that should, and sort of allow me to process why, help me to do it while I'm feeling better about doing it, and overall not training my brain that eating vegetables is a bad thing. These are things that I do every single time I start to notice that I'm starting to should all over myself, and they really have made a huge difference over the years, not only in how I view myself, in my situations, but also how I view my life in general. And so I am truly hoping that all of these things help you do that as well, and that you see some amazing changes just like I did. Thank you so much for tuning in today, you guys. It really does truly mean so much to me each and every single time. You make a difference in my life, and I really appreciate your presence. Feel free to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Like or dislike this video. It's cool and helpful either way. And feel free to connect with me on social media. Links are below. And I'd love to always leave us with a cool quote, or what I think is a cool quote. But really, the title of this video says it Atlas. Oh my gosh, Atlas just farted. That's not the quote I wanted to leave. Anyway, the quote that I was just gonna leave us with was the title of this video, because it really does say it all. Don't should on yourselves, and I will see you next time.